Hello students, hopefully you're doing well. I am making another video for the Access Capstone. Hopefully it won't be too much longer in length than, than 15-20 minutes, but I'm sure I'll find a way to do that. I wanted to make this video because the current Access Capstone that I have provided with y'all, the practice that was created by me, that I have the YouTube video for, is lacking a little in the amount of skills that you need to accomplish. So I think I highlighted those skills. I highlighted them in an announcement for us. Some of them are simple and some of them are not so simple. So I just want to make sure that I go over them to include them. Now, I did do some of these skills inside of the video on YouTube. However, I noticed that it's hard to follow along because I do not have the examples written out for you. So what I've done is I've written out the examples to cover all, if not most, of these things that were in green. And in fact, a couple that were not in green that I realized, oh, I didn't cover those either. Okay, so all of these things you should be able to do without much trouble. Okay, well, some of them you should be able to do without much trouble. There are a couple, maybe like the calculated field to a query and create a parameter query, that may take a little more, time for you. But the rest of them, they should be fairly simple to understand. Okay, so let's go and get started. The first one, I just want to start with stuff that's easy. In this instance, rename a table. Okay, so when you get to your finished product, I have the solution file here. When we get to our finished product, what I want us to do is use that finished product and do these steps. Okay, so in this, what I want us to do is I want us to rename the buildings table to facilities. So what we will do is we come over to buildings, right click, and then we should say rename and facilities. Okay, now one thing we need to make certain of whenever we rename something, or whenever we name an object or anything in our Access database, we need to make certain we spell it correctly. If we do not spell it correctly, as it tells us to spell it in our instructions, then whenever we submit our project, all of that work that we did will be for naught. Basically, you'll get 0 points for that because we misspelled a word. Okay, so make sure you spelled correctly. This will also help, or can also help when we're doing queries. If you misspell the name of a field, and you're trying to add content to that field from an import, it will cause issues if it's misspelled. So if the two spellings are different from what you're trying to import to what's in the database, it will cause issues, and you will have to make sure to look at those. So we renamed that facilities. Very easy. So that was number one. Right. Number two, hide a field in a query. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in the Yang patient diagnosis query and hide the PCP field. So Yang patient diagnosis, we're going to open it. To hide a field, we're going to go into the design view, and under design view, in the area down here that really governs our queries, so where we create our queries at, there's a row called show, and what we're going to do is we're going to take where it says show, and we're going to uncheck the box for PCP, going to run that, and we notice that the PCP is gone, and but that it is still using the filter for Yang. We still have 85 results. Okay, so that was easy as well. Should have thrown that in earlier. Didn't. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. Specify the sort order in a query. Okay, so let's close this. Yes. So specify the sort order in a query. In the patient diagnosis query, sort the results so that the patient's diagnoses are listed alphabetically by each patient's last name. The patient's last name should also be in alphabetical order. All right, so we're doing sorting in a query. Whenever we have to sort a query, okay, what we want to do, we're not going to use the sorts that are found here. Okay, instead what we're going to do is we're going to go to design view, and over here, like once again in this area down here, we're going to go to the sort for each field that's listed, and we're going to sort accordingly. Okay, so the fields that are listed here, field or fields, first is the patient's diagnosis. Okay, so under patient diagnosis, so this is diagnosis, we're going to sort the field alphabetically. Remember, alphabetically is ascending. A, alphabet, A to Z. So all start with A's. A, alphabet, A to Z. Okay, same thing with last name. We're going to come over here, and we're going to do it ascending. All right, and then what's going to happen is we will run this query, and now what you should see is all of our diagnosis listed in alphabetical order by each patient's last name. Okay, so what that means is that it will take Adams, and for each diagnosis that occurred for Adams, it will label them going down. So Patricia Adams is first. She had headaches, influenza, pneumonia, respiratory, the virus, okay, and scoliosis. So we definitely want to make sure that it was done right, and it was done right, because within each person's individual's last name, okay, within each individual's last name, so the last names overall are listed alphabetically overall. So and then within their name, I want to see all of their diagnosis. Okay, so I want to see all their diagnosis within their last name. So that's exactly what it does. All right, so there we go. Now let's go and do a little bit more in this query right here. We're going to do and, or, as well as and or together. Okay, so let's just do this. So in the patient, for the and, here's what we're doing. In the patient diagnosis query, show only patients with the last name beginning with the letter M who have allergies. Run the query. There should be 4 results. Okay, so we're going to go back to our design view, and we're going to go to criteria, and we're going to go to last name. And we want last names that begin with M. So we're going to use the wildcard in this case. Don't worry, you shouldn't have to use the wildcard in your text. But if you want, in this case, we're going to, or in your test, in this case, we're going to, just to get more results and make it a little more vast in our searches. Okay, so we're going to use the last names that begin with the letter M. Okay, and they have diagnosis of allergies, and we have to spell allergies correctly, otherwise it won't return any results. So whenever we come under here and we run it, we should get 4 results. Allergies, 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 allergies. Great. Okay. Let's see what's next. What's next? Or. So in the or, what we have is we have one criteria that that shows us for one field, and then another criteria in another field, and they're not connected. So they're not connected, and the 2 criteria are connected. We can see because we wanted people with M in their last name, or beginning at their last name, who have allergies. So the people with M need to have allergies. Here we want them to have the letter M, or they have allergies. Okay, so when we do that, when we have that, what we're going to do is we're going to take M, keep M right there, and we're just going to scoot allergies down 1. Okay, we're just going to scoot allergies down 1. So we're going to run that, and we're going to come up with 54 results. Okay, 54 results. Now, how can we check to make sure this is right? Well, we go to the diagnosis table, and I'm going to open it, and I'm going to look for all the people who have allergies. How many people have allergies? Boop. Okay, so 18 people have been diagnosed with allergies. Okay. Now, what we should remember is that in our last query that we ran, 4 of these people also had M in their last name. Alright, so 4 of them had M at the beginning of their last name. So that means that 4 of these results, only 14 results are people who have allergies that don't start with M. So what we can do is we can take the 14. So remember 14. Okay? And now what we're going to have to do, so we have to 14. Now we're going to go to the patients table, and we're going to see who has a last name that begins with M. How many results do we get? Sorry. So then we see the results for the patients who begin with M. And in each patient, we can drop down and see how many times they were seen. Because remember, each time they were seen creates a different instance. In your diagnosis, patient diagnosis table. All right. So this person was seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15 for Jordan, or Joan, I'm sorry. So 15 for Joan, and we have some more over here. I'm going to venture to guess that there's going to be there's how many patients here? It came out with 8. I'm going to venture to guess that each of these patients has 5 visits. Okay, and 8 times 5 is 40. So 40 plus the 14 people who were diagnosed with allergies that don't have a last name starting with the letter M, that comes out to our 54. I can go and check it. I'm just going to assume in this. If you want to check, you're more than welcome. And so to do that, you have to expand all of these and then count the number of times that they were seen. Okay, expand them all and then count the number of times they were seen, because that will show you the number of results for. So every time an M patient was seen, if they were seen multiple times, it's going to count each time. Okay, so there we go. So that was our 54. I hope you can follow me. All right, now comes the fun one that hopefully you've gotten better at by this point. We're going to do the and or. So in the patient diagnosis query, show only patients with the last name beginning with the letter M who have allergies or diabetes. Okay, so go back. M. All right, letter M. We want patients who have allergies or diabetes. Remember, when you have two criteria in the same field, you need to separate them. Okay, like I have here on different lines. Now the thing that we have to do is when we separate them, we also have to attach any other criteria that are attached to them. So once again, we want only people who have a name that begin with M who have allergies or diabetes. So it begins with M, they have allergies or diabetes. We run it. We should come up with 6 results. I didn't put it, but that's correct. I can go to the diagnosis table. Darn it. I'm going to actually have to go to the patients table. M, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there should be one other person who has 6. Andrea Morris. Let's see. Nope, that's it. So 6. So 6 patients. Okay. Haven't done it. Then we can see their names right here. All right. So that's how you check. All right. Don't want to do that. Don't worry about that. And let's go ahead. I don't think I have anything else. Okay. Let's go ahead. We can save the changes there. Sure. Why not? Okay. Adding a calculated field. Okay. Adding a calculated. Actually, you know what? We need to remove these things. Because we have something else that we're going to do to this. Alright, so let's remove that. I just realized. Create a new query named Days to Diagnosis. Add the fields patient ID, diagnosis, and date of initial visit from the diagnosis table. Alright, from the diagnosis table. So we're going to go create, doesn't matter which one you want, I'll do query design, diagnosis. We're going to have patient ID, diagnosis, date of initial visit. And then we're going to, at the end of the query, create a calculated field that shows how many days it took from the initial visit date to diagnose the patient's issue. Hint, make sure you are subtracting the date of initial visit from the date diagnosed to create a positive number. Okay? So remember, when we want to add a new field, we go to the first blank that's available to us. And when we're doing a calculated field, we can come up here to Builder. Okay, Builder. Now we need to enter in the parameters of what we want. So in this instance, our expression categories are not there for us. So with that being said, we have to go to our database, open it up so that we can see the tables. We're going to use the diagnosis table. We're going to subtract the date diagnosed, okay, the date diagnosed by the date of the initial visit, or in this case, the date of the initial visit from the date diagnosed. All right, and that is going to give us how many days it took us to diagnose this patient. And we can actually, let's just go ahead and name that field days to diagnosis. So remember, when you name a field, a calculated field, you highlight the EXPR1 and you take that out, but do not take out the colon. If you take out the colon, you're going to have issues, okay? The colon must remain. So we have days to diagnosis, and we have all the other tables. So we're going to run that. Error. And what is the error from? Let's see here. Interesting that it didn't tell us. Let's go. I may know what. Because these are data types or short text. See, you got to make sure your data types match. Oh, gosh. So you got to make sure your data types match, otherwise they won't. There we go. Days to diagnosis. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and save this query. Days to diagnosis. So whenever you get an error, we need to stop and think about what could possibly be our issue. In this case, the issue was that one of our dates was a short text field. All right, and it needed to be a date field. So we're going to name it days to diagnosis. Say OK. There we go. Hopefully we're all good there. Okay. Next one. Create a parameter query. And then we have some stuff at the bottom. That shouldn't take too long. Okay, create a parameter query. So we're going to change the patient diagnosis query to prompt a user to enter a patient's ID every time they wish to open the query. The results should only show a single patient based on the ID the person enters. And if no ID is entered, no results should appear. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our patient diagnosis table and open it. And we're going to use a parameter query, because that's how you prompt users of the database to enter in information to automatically filter for in this case, the patient ID. So to remember, for a parameter query, we're going to go to whatever field we want the parameter query attached to. We're going to go to criteria, and we're going to open our bracket. Okay, your bracket should be somewhere near your return or enter key. All right, so open the bracket, and then we're going to put in there, enter a patient's ID. And then we're going to close the bracket. All right. Now, when we run, it's going to ask us to enter in a patient's ID. So we need to find a patient's ID. If we don't know any, it should give us this. All right. So every time, sure, we want to save design. Every time we come to we'll open a patient's thing. Let's see Brian Williams. Okay, so Brian Williams. We're going to open up our patient diagnosis. There we go. Boom. Did it give us anything for Brian Williams? It did not. And it should have. And the reason it did not is probably because I need to take out these symbols. Yeah. Access. Okay. So, there we go. Yeah, these symbols were put in there as part of the I created that field as a custom input mask field, and so I think I told it not to store the dashes. So since it doesn't store the dashes in there, it doesn't read the dashes. So the dashes are just there for visual aid, not for any purpose. So that's why. Okay. Gosh. Okay. So we have Brian Williams. We got the results that we wanted because he's been seen. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everybody's been seen 5 times. Okay. Everybody's been seen 5 times. So there we go. It should be working. Go ahead and close that, open it back up, say okay, up, no patients, good. That's what we wanted. Alright, that's what we wanted. Now, something else we want to make sure of is we don't want to enter in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's Boko Bobcat. Alright, Boko Bobcat. And Boko has not been seen for anything. And so we want to make sure that the people that we're trying to look for actually have been seen. All right. Okay, let's go back. Taking longer than I wanted here. All right. So next, create a new blank report. And with that, we're going to add fields to the blank report from a layout view. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to create. We're going to go blank report. Now, as I was telling people earlier, the thing that you have to know is that it doesn't necessarily matter how you create the report, just as long as it's the way that it is, that the system wants it to be created. So if I were to create a report in Report Wizard and it turns out how the system wants it, that will it will grade it the same way. Okay, so my point is that you don't necessarily have to stick to the laid out plan that they want you to. You can do it whatever way is most comfortable for you, and hopefully that way will be successful in producing the report or whatever they're asking you to do to the specifications that they asked you to do it. Okay, so in this instance, I mean, with this one, we're just going to do this right quick so I can show you. So we're going to create a new blank report with the name field from the doctor's table and first and last name fields from the patient's table, and then group the report by the doctor's name. So we're going to use the name field from the doctor's table. All right, and then we're going to use the F name and L name, which are first and last name from the patient's table. And we are going to group by. So whenever we do that in design, if you don't see group, add a group down here, you come to design, and here's group and sort. So click on that. We'll add a group. We're going to click on name. All right. So we added the name there. All right. So we group by the doctor's name. All right. Then what we are going to do is we're going to add totals to the report. We're going to add totals to the report to count the number of patients each doctor is listed as the PCP. So basically we're going to count how many times, how many different instances of patients we have, okay, for each doctor. So to do that, what you'd have to do is have this totals row, this totals button. So if you don't see it highlighted, okay, just click around in up top and that should do it. Totals. We can count records or we can count values. We'll count records, okay? And what that will do is it will make it to where it counts under each individual doctor. So for Carson, we have 15 patients. For Rachel, 16. You get it. And then overall, we should have how many patients? 100. Because when we go to the patient table, we have, if it will show it, 100 patients. All right. So we have 100 patients by different doctors. There we go. Okay. So that's adding the totals. Now we're going to arrange the controls in the report. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the first name and we're going to move it in front of the last name. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll click on the first name. Last name. Hold down Control. Click on the information that is under it in the same column. And we are going to grab it and drag it. Just like that. Alright, grab it and drag it. Now what we'll notice is that it did not move our controls in the, so these are the total controls. So it did not move those total controls for us. So we are just going to keep our numbers, our totals over here, so that way they're separated out from the first name and last name boxes, and we can see it makes it a little easier to see there that information. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to, what's our next step? Our next step is to add page numbers to the report. So we're going to add page numbers to the footer of the report using the N of M format with right alignment. So we're going to go back to here, and we're going to go to, we're in design, page numbers. Okay, so this has page numbers, date, time. If you want to add a title or a logo, you can do all these things in here. So in here we're going to select page number, page N of M, bottom of the page, alignment on the right. Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to look at the print preview and see how this all looks. Alright, so that's one page. We can see 4 pages because that's how much it came out to. There we go. It looks kind of bad, but honestly, for a report, but honestly, I've seen much worse reports. So, but this is just to get some practice in moving and arranging things. All right, moving and arranging things. If I wanted to, speaking of, if I were arranging, go back to layout view. If I wanted to make it to where these names are more, instead of being on different lines, they're on one line. Basically what I can do is I can click on the name control box up above and drag out until I get there. If I wanted to, as you just saw, if I double click on the name box, it shrinks it down, and so things are unreadable. So we need to make sure that we don't do that. Alright, so we can click on these, and oh man, is it going to do it? Nope, it's not. There we go. Okay, so you can just mess around with it, moving controls and things of that nature, adding to it. If you want to mess around in design view to see how to move things, you can. Same thing up here. Whenever I click, it should move the boxes below it, like last name. See how it moves everything out. First name. Oop. I can't. Of course. Oop. There we go. Alright. So there you go. Alright. Well, where are you? There you are. Well, that's all I remember that I missed on there. So hopefully this helped you. We'll look forward to seeing you in the exam. Any questions? Just let me know. Alright, talk to you later. Oops.